Gratitude in Glass War Memorial Windows in Ulster. There are at least 114 war-related memorial windows in Ulster, a few of which are modern windows commemorating the centenary of the Great War. For example, the window depicted in the title slide is modern. It's in Ballymore Church of Ireland in Tandragee. And what I've got displayed is just the top part of that memorial window. But that's an example of a modern memorial window. Of the ones that I have recorded, 80 windows relate specifically to the Great War, 26 relate to the Second World War, and 6 relate to both World Wars. One personal memorial window that I'm aware of, or a photograph, is for a Boer War fatality. 6 of the memorial windows commemorate clubs, societies, schools, or companies. 65 commemorate congregations. 8 commemorate regiments, including 2 for the North Irish Horse. 1 commemorates the Ulster Division, and 34 commemorate individual fatalities. And it's those individual fatalities that we're going to be looking at tonight. 3 memorial windows have been lost. St. John's Church of Ireland on Laganbank, Conswater Avenue Congregational Church, and Antrim Road National School. So I'm just going to run through these alphabetically, but I've tried to cover as far as possible all the counties in Ulster. The only ones where I'm not aware of a memorial window are in Cavan and Fermanagh. So the first one is in St. Donald's Church of Ireland at Bloomfield. It was installed or designed by Ward and Partners of Belfast and was unveiled on Sunday the 19th of March 1922 by Mr. Thomas Scott of Dundela, and dedicated by the Reverend Charles Thornton Primrose Grierson, who was Bishop of Down, Connor and Dromore. The Reverend Alexander Moore, who had served as a chaplain in the Great War, was the rector of St. Donald's at that time. The theme of the window is the resurrection of Christ. The tracery wind lights feature the dove of the Spirit and the Alpha and Omega symbols. At the feet of Christ is the empty tomb, which is represented as a tomb that we would expect for a leading person, rather than the cave type tomb that we normally associate with Jesus. So at the foot of Christ is the empty tomb, and the Roman soldiers that were set to guard the tomb. Some are stirring from sleep with bewildered and astonished facial expressions. The central soldier is still sleeping and has a flask clutched in his right hand. So obviously he had a wee bit too much aqua vitae the night before. This is Margaret Armstrong Anderson of Dundela Drive in Belfast. Born Margaret Armstrong Scott on 3rd of October 1884 at the Park in Gorey, County Wexford. Her parents were Thomas Scott and Catherine Darby. In 1901, the family was living on the Upper Newtonards Road, and Thomas was recorded as being a provisions merchant. By 1911, the family was living at Dundela Drive. Thomas was now a horticultural instructor, and Margaret was recorded as being a designer. Doesn't record what she designed. On 10th September 1912, Miss Margaret Armstrong Scott departed from Liverpool on SS Caronia, bound for New York. She married George Alexander Anderson on the 18th September in Manhattan. Margaret and George lived at Carnegie Building in Pittsburgh. Margaret Armstrong Scott died on the 7th of May 1915, aged 30, when RMS Lusitania was torpedoed and sunk by German submarine U-20. She is buried in the Common Grave C at the Old Church Cemetery in Queenstown, County Cork, now Cove, County Cork. So I wanted to include her because she's a civilian fatality, and that window is, as far as I'm aware, the only specific memorial in a church to a victim of the Lusitania sinking. The second window is in First Presbyterian Church in Monaghan, and it was designed by Catherine Amelia O'Brien from the Antur Glowen Collective in Dublin. It was unveiled on Sunday the 10th of December 1916 by Lieutenant Colonel A.W. Gordon of the Royal Dublin Fusiliers. in a service at which Reverend Professor James Strachan of Londonderry officiated. The Royal Marine Light Infantry were represented by Captain Barry O'Sullivan, and there were representatives from Trinity College in Dublin, Lansdowne Football Club, and the Royal Irish Fusiliers. During both services on that Sunday, the offering was collected on behalf of the UVF Patriotic Fund. The theme of the three-light window is Old Testament warriors and fight the good fight. The first window depicts Jonathan with his bow. The central window depicts David, and you can see his sling bag. And the third window depicts Gideon. The central panel at the base of the window includes a dedication to the two brothers over the coat of arms of the United Kingdom. The window is dedicated to two sons of William Black, a retired merchant, and Sarah Jarvis Trower of Ballylech House in Bellinode near Monaghan. Sarah Jarvis Trower was born in South Africa, as were 5 of their 7 children. William Black owned a string of trading stations from Umtata to Kokstad and was an original owner of the ground on which the Nelson Mandela Museum was later built. The family arrived back in the United Kingdom at Southampton on board SS Carisbrooke Castle on 13th June 1903. In 1915, William Black was High Sheriff for the County of Monaghan. Lieutenant Cecil John Trower Black was born on 6th February 1897 in South Africa. He received a commission with the Royal Marine Light Infantry on the 22nd of August 1914 and was promoted to full lieutenant in March 1915. He was serving with the Portsmouth Battalion in the Royal Naval Division when that unit landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula on 28 April 1915. He was killed in action on 9th May 1915, aged 18, and is commemorated on the Helles Memorial on the Gallipoli Peninsula. Lance Sergeant Thomas Samuel Cuthbert Black was born in Cape Colony, South Africa in July 1893, and he studied medicine at Trinity College in Dublin. He enlisted with the 7th Battalion Royal Dublin Fusiliers and took part in the landings at Suvla Bay on 7th August 1915 with 30th Brigade of the 10th Irish Division. Lance Sergeant Black died of wounds at No. 15 General Hospital in Alexandria on 25th September 1915, aged 22. He is buried in the Chatby Military and War Memorial Cemetery in Alexandria, Egypt. I'm led to believe that the Royal Marine Light Infantry Museum or Regiment wanted to buy that part of the window because it featured the insignia of the Royal Marine Light Infantry, and it's a truly fantastic window. All in all, the colours are just so vibrant. St John's Church of Ireland at Malone has, to the best of my knowledge, the highest concentration of war-related memorial windows in Northern Ireland, or indeed Ulster. 7 windows dedicated to fatalities of the Great War were installed between the end of the war and the end of 1921. I'll be looking at one window, but as the church is usually open on European Heritage Open Days, it's well worth a visit. This window was designed by William McBride of Craft Workers Limited of Dublin, and it was unveiled around October 1920. For most of the windows in this church, I haven't been able to identify the specifics of when they were unveiled and dedicated because the church just doesn't have the records and they weren't reported in the newspapers, which is unfortunate. The tracery light at the apex of the window features the insignia of the Royal Irish Fusiliers, whilst the 2 main lights represent victory and peace. Victory is represented by St. Michael hovering over a group of Allied soldiers. His sword alights on the head of the central figure. Peace, on the other window, is represented by an angel releasing doves over a group of female figures who symbolize freedom, motherhood, and love. So you can just see on the first window the flaming sword landing on the head of the man to whom this window is dedicated, and that's Adam Capper, who's holding a basket-handled sword. He's the principal figure in this group of soldiers. On his left-hand side is a soldier wearing one of the goat skins issued to soldiers during winter periods. The corresponding segment in the second window features a group of women and children and one elderly man, a reference to the fact that the war was fought to protect the vulnerable. And there's the full parts of those lower windows. So you can see the children, you can see the dove of peace standing, or doves of peace down in the bottom corner, and so forth. And you can just see the face of an elderly man poking through here. And there's the basket-handled sword. So it's, again, the detail in the window is quite astonishing. And this is Adam Capper, or Adam Clark Capper to give him his full name. And he was born on 18th June 1894 at Chichester Park in Clifton Ward. To Adam Clark Capper, the yarn merchant, and Rebecca Reid, he was educated at the Royal Academical Institution, and the family was living at Malvern on the Malone Road in 1911. Adam was an apprentice in the family yarn business, which was based in Brunswick Street in Belfast. He received a commission in the Ulster Division via the Officers Training Corps, Queen's, but as a result of contracting measles, he was unable to accompany the division when it deployed to France in October 1915. He was subsequently attached to the Army Service Corps, which is why you see him in his Army Service Corps uniform in the photograph. But he then received a transfer to the 20th Battalion of the Royal Irish Rifles. This was a reserve battalion for the Ulster Division. He was posted to 7th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles in the field on 12th August 1916 and fought with the 16th Irish Division in the autumn phase of the Battles of the Somme 1916. Second Lieutenant Adam Clark Capper was killed in action on 9th September 1916, aged 22, during the capture of Ginchy. He was buried nearby but was later reinterred in Delville Wood Cemetery at Longueval in France. In addition to being commemorated at St. John's Church of Ireland, Adam Capper is commemorated on the family memorial in Belfast City Cemetery and the Queen's University War Memorial. He's also commemorated on memorial tablets for the Ulster Reform Club, North of Ireland Football Club, Malone Golf Club, and RBAI. This memorial window in Downshire Road Presbyterian Church in Newry was designed by Clokey of Belfast. It was unveiled on Sunday, 26 September 1948, in a service led by the Very Reverend Andrew Gibson, MC of Trinity Presbyterian Church in Cork. Andrew Gibson was the moderator of the Presbyterian Church in Ireland for 1944-45 and had been awarded the Military Cross while serving as a chaplain to the Ulster Division during the Great War. The crest and motto of the Royal Artillery is depicted at the top of the window, and the crown of life is depicted at the bottom of the window. The theme of the window is Faithful Warrior. On one side, the warrior with an upturned sword is depicted in an attitude of prayer while receiving a blessing. On the other side, the warrior is depicted offering up the sword, and this symbolizes his willingness to die in a just cause. William Desmond Coleman was born on 27th January 1912 at Hill Street in Newry to William Hannah Coleman and Hester Lavinia Crossett. His father was the manager for the Newry branch of the Belfast Banking Company, and William Coleman received a commission with the Royal Artillery. He was serving with 22 Mountain Regiment in the Royal Indian Artillery when he was killed in action on 16th February 1942 at the age of 30. He was killed during the fall of Singapore. He has no known grave and is commemorated on the Singapore Memorial. Don't have a photograph of William Desmond Coleman, so I used to photograph an old postcard photograph of the Belfast Bank Company premises in Newry. Two stained glass windows were installed in memory of Captain Henry Gallagher, DSO, at First Rye Presbyterian Church in Manor Cunningham, County Donegal. Both windows were designed by Warden Partners of Belfast, and the windows were unveiled on Sunday the 3rd of August 1919 by Charles Clements, 5th Earl of Leitrim, and Brigadier General Ambrose Ricardo. The windows were dedicated by the Reverend McKee, who is a chaplain to the forces. The second window includes the insignia of the Royal Inniskilling Fusiliers up at the top of the window here. These photographs are courtesy of Liam McLaughlin from County Donegal, who sent them to me tail end of last week. The first window was installed by the congregation and has as its theme, putting on the armour of God. The female figure handing the knight a lance is named Honour, and the female figure handing the knight a shield is named Truth. Laurel wreaths adorn the pillars on either side. The lower panel for that window features an idyllic rural landscape, and an image of the distinguished service order, is displayed in this corner. So you can read that erected by the members of First Rye in proud and loving memory of Captain Henry Gallagher, DSO, 11th Royal Inniskilling Fusiliers, who was a faithful and devoted member of the church. The second window was installed by the Royal Inniskilling Fusiliers and features the regimental crest, as I said, at the very top of the window. The theme of this window is faithful unto death, and the knight is making an oath to a female figure entitled Death, whilst the second female figure entitled Life holds the crown of life. So basically this is depicting his willingness to give up his life for a just cause, and in return for which he will be rewarded with the crown of life. The lower panel features a scene from a battlefield as a counterpoint to the idyllic rural scene in the first window. In one of the corners at the base of the window is Inniskilling Castle, and you can just see the flag of St. George flying to the correct side. In the other corner is a crest with two supine lions and the motto Mea Gloria Fides, which is faith is my glory. Whether that's a family motto, whether that's a family coat of arms, I do not know. So moving on to Henry Gallagher himself, and anyone who was at the talk last Sunday week, there's going to be a bit of repetition here. Henry Gallagher was born on 11th March 1886 at Ardnadishon, near Manacunningham in County Donegal, to John Gallagher and Jane Park Campbell, being the third of their 7 children. His mother died of a cerebral hemorrhage at Ballygan on 6 September 1902 at the age of 49. John Gallagher married Jessie McInnes Johnston on the 18th of July 1905 at Lasara Presbyterian Church in Dromore, County Down. Henry Gallagher was a company commander in the Manacunningham Battalion of the Donegal Regiment UVF, and he enlisted with the 11th Battalion Royal Inniskilling Fusiliers on the 1st of September 1914. He held the rank of sergeant when he was commissioned on 23rd January 1915. For his actions at the Battle of Alba on the 1st of July, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Order. For conspicuous gallantry in action, when other officers became casualties, he took command and led on his men with great dash. Seeing the enemy firing on our wounded, he got into a shell hole with a private and shot 6 enemy snipers with a rifle. Finally, he volunteered and with 20 men rescued 28 wounded men under very heavy fire. He was promoted to captain on the 2nd of July 1916. Shortly after 5 a.m. on 7th June 1917, the first day of the Battle of Messines, when the shell fire was only 30 or 40 yards ahead of the advancing troops, Henry Gallagher was hit on the left arm by a shell fragment, but kept his company's advance going, only to be hit by another shell and killed instantaneously. He was 31 years old and is buried in the Lone Tree Cemetery in Belgium. Captain Gallagher was recommended posthumously for a Victoria Cross by his battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Audley Charles Pratt. The recommendation reads, on 7th June 1917, in the Spanbrook sector, on the occasion of the general attack on the Messines Whiteshade Road, this officer was severely wounded before he reached the first enemy line, his left arm being broken. He threw down the rifle which he was carrying and said, "That's all right, boys, I'll do well with a revolver." He continued to lead his men in attack, stopping them when they got too close to our artillery barrage, and giving his commands as coolly as if on parade and as if he had never been wounded. He led them to their final objective, but just as the position which he had gained was being consolidated, he fell mortally wounded. His bravery has never been in doubt. He was the idol of his men and of the battalion in general. Wherever he led, his men would follow. His example on all occasions, and on this day in particular, remain as an example and which will be treasured in this battalion. He didn't receive the Victoria Cross or even a bar to his DSO. This window in St. Michael's Church of Ireland off the Shankill Road was designed by Douglas and Sons of Belfast. The window in the adjacent memorial tablet was dedicated on the 18th September 1932 by the Reverend Charles Staunton Primrose Grierson, Bishop of Down, Connor and Dromore. The theme of the window is Christ as the light of the world and the adoration of the Magi. The window and the tablet commemorate the Reverend Richard Usher Greer, who served as a chaplain to the Ulster Division during the Great War. Richard Usher Greer was born on 28th July 1868 at Tullyvay near Coke in County Tyrone to the Reverend William Henry Greer and Charlotte Pike. Richard Greer was educated at the Royal School Armagh, Royal School Dungannon and Trinity College in Dublin. He was rector of St. Michael's Church when he married Elizabeth Lindsay Greer on 28 April 1898 at Desert Crate Parish Church near Cookstown. He was appointed as rector of Christ Church in Lisburn in 1902 and then as rector of St. Patrick Parish Church in Banbridge in 1911. Reverend Greer secured a chaplaincy looking after the 8th Battalion Royal Irish Rifles, but he died of a brain hemorrhage at St. Patrick Rectory on 23 June 1915, aged 46. He is buried at the graveyard at Tullaneskin Church of Ireland in New Mills. Bound to pronounce that incorrectly, but there you go. He is commemorated on the Banbridge and District War Memorial, but is not commemorated on the memorial tablet in St. Patrick Parish Church in Banbridge, despite having been the minister there. In St. Patrick Church, there's a stunning stained glass window that commemorates the service and sacrifice of people from the district during the First World War. Moving back to Belfast, this two-light window with tracery in St. Peter's Church of Ireland on the Antrim Road was designed by Cloquet & Company of Belfast. It was unveiled on Sunday, the 4th of March 1951 by Margaret Ellen Hanforth and dedicated by the Reverend William Shaw Kerr, Bishop of Down and Dromore. The tracery panel features the insignia of the 15th Punjab Regiment. The first panel features Christ in Majesty and is entitled Truth, whilst the second panel features Faithful Warrior or A Good Soldier of Jesus Christ and is entitled Valor. On either side of the knight are two images. One is a crowned rampant lion with laurel leaves, and the second is the crest of the Queen's University in Belfast. So Queen's University of Belfast crest, the other one's over here, and to be honest, I'm not sure what it represents. It could be a reference to the ATC Corps at Inst. Claude Lowry Hanforth was the son of Claude Lowry Hanforth, a Belfast Corporation official, and Margaret Ellen Dornan of Castle Avenue in Belfast. He was educated at RBAI and was awarded a languages scholarship to Queen's University. He was a lieutenant with 1st Battalion 15th Punjab Regiment when he was reported missing on 17th February 1943 and was subsequently confirmed as having been killed in action on that date. He was 20 years old and is commemorated on the Rangoon Memorial in Myanmar, or Burma as I used to call it, on the Queen's University War Memorial and on a family memorial in Knockbreeder Cemetery. This three-light window is in Shankill Parish Church in Lurgan, and it was designed by Heaton, Butler and Bain of London. The window was dedicated on Sunday, the 29th May 1921 by the Reverend Charles Frederick Darcy, who was the Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of All Ireland. The themes depict a biblical scene called the Road to Emmaus, but there is no military or martial aspect. There's no war connection apart from the dedication. Joseph Allen Johnston was born on 2nd May 1891 at High Street in Lurgan to James Johnston and Christina Bowen. His father was a Justice of the Peace, and he was co-founder of Johnston and Allen, a local linen manufactory. Joseph was educated at Campbell College, and after spending time on the continent learning about the linen trade, he joined the family firm. He was a keen member of the Lough Neagh Yacht Club and was commander of the signalling corps in the Lurgan Battalion of the UVF. He received a commission with the Royal Irish Fusiliers and held the rank of lieutenant with the 9th Battalion when he was deployed to France in October 1915. He was promoted to captain in February 1916 and was killed in action on 18th February 1917, aged 25. He's buried in St. Quentin Cabaret Military Cemetery in Belgium and is also commemorated on the Lurgan and District War Memorial and the Campbell College War Memorial. This is possibly the least impressive of the various windows that I'm talking about this evening, and I've included it because I wanted to include a window from County Londonderry. In 1977, a series of windows depicting the parables of Jesus were installed in Acadui Presbyterian Church. This window depicting the parable of the sower was dedicated to Private Robert Knox. Robert Knox was born on 6th May 1893 at Mullaghmore near Acadui to Joseph Knox and Margaret McMichael. His mother died of pulmonary oedema on 26 January 1904 at Mullaghmore. Robert enlisted with the Royal Inniskilling Fusiliers and was deployed to France with 9th Battalion in October 1915. He was killed in action on 29th March 1918, aged 25, and is buried in the Ham British Cemetery in France. This single light window in 5 Mile Town Parish Church was designed by Archibald Keighley Nicholson of London. It was unveiled on Sunday the 20th of March 1921 by Messrs Dixon and Martin, who were the church wardens, and it was dedicated by the Reverend Morris Day, Bishop of Clocker. The upper segment features the Montgomery family crest and the motto "Honor sans repose," or "Honor without resting." The central segment features St. Barbara holding a drawn sword in her right hand and clasping a tower to her left breast. St. Barbara is regarded as the patron saint of armourers, artillerymen, and military engineers. The lower panel features the resurrected Christ, and the black and white tiling in the foreground may be a reference to Freemasonry. Major Ralph Noel Vernon Montgomery, DSO. He was born on 26 April 1884 at Blessingbourne Manor near 5 Mile Town to Hugh Maud de Fellenberg Montgomery and Mary Sophia Juliana Maud. His father was the Deputy Lieutenant for the County of Tyrone and Justice of Peace for the counties of Fermanagh and Tyrone. Ralph Montgomery held a commission with the Royal Field Artillery and was deployed to France in August 1915 and was wounded in the summer of 1916. He held the rank of Major when he died of pneumonia at the military hospital in Doullens on 1st of April 1919, aged 34, and he's buried in the Doullens Communal Cemetery Extension number 2 in France. This three-light window in Holy Trinity Parish Church in Ballywalter was designed by Hayton, Butler and Bain of London. The window was unveiled on Saturday, 22nd January 1921 by the Right Honourable Lord Dunleith and dedicated by the Reverend Charles Frederick Darcy, Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of All Ireland. The first light features St. Michael with the flaming sword and a scriptural reference to being faithful unto death and receiving the crown of life. The window also features a shield with the saltire of St. Patrick up at the top here. The central window features a group of soldiers exiting from a trench into no man's land above the inscription, "Be strong and of good courage." The third light features St. George with the insignia of the Irish Guards at the top of the window. And the scriptural reference commends those slain for the word of God. Andrew Edward Somerset Mulholland was born on 20th September 1882 at Drayton Lodge in Monkstown near Dublin. His parents were Henry Lyle Mulholland, 2nd Baron Dunleith, and Nora Louisa Fanny Ward of Ballywalter Park in County Down. He was educated at Eton and Oxford, and in July 1903 was commissioned as a second lieutenant with the North of Ireland Imperial Yeomanry. This later became the North Irish Horse. He joined the Irish Guards in 1906, was promoted to lieutenant in 1909 and captain in 1913. He married Lady Hester Joan Byng, youngest daughter of the 5th Earl of Strafford, in June 1913. Andrew Mulholland was deployed to France with 1st Battalion Irish Guards on the 12th of August 1914, taking part in the retreat from Mons and the advance to the Aisne before moving north into the Ypres sector. He was killed in action in the fighting around Ypres on 1st November 1914, aged 32, and is buried in Ypres Town Cemetery in Belgium. This is also in this original grave cross is also in Ballywalter Parish Church. Whenever the Imperial War Graves Commission were replacing the wooden crosses with the stone headstones, they made the original crosses available to family members if they wanted to claim them. Unfortunately, the family had to pay for the memorial cross to be brought back to England or Ireland, which for the likes of the Mulholland family, the Dunleith family, presented no issues. But for other members of society, it would have been too much of a cost. Moving back up to County Antrim, this 3-light window at Dramall Parish Church in Randallstown was designed by Alfred Ernest Child of the Antur Glowan Collective in Dublin. It was dedicated on Sunday the 2nd September 1923 by the Reverend Charles Frederick Darcy, Archbishop of Armagh and Primate of all Ireland. The central light features the risen Christ, whilst the first light depicts a knight receiving the crown of life, representing valour. The third panel depicts an angel holding an olive branch, representing peace. Arthur Edward Bruce O'Neill was born on 19 September 1876 to Edward O'Neill, 2nd Baron O'Neill of Shane's Castle, and Lady Louisa Catherine Emma Cochrane. Arthur O'Neill received a commission in the 2nd Regiment of Lifeguards on 26 May 1897. He was promoted to lieutenant on 15 June 1898. He saw active service in the South Africa campaign between 1899 and 1900 and was promoted to captain on 3 January 1902. He married Lady Annabel Crewe Milnes on 21st January 1902 at St. Paul's Church in Knightsbridge. He was elected to the House of Commons for Mid-Antrim in January 1910 and returned to active service at the start of the war. He was killed in action at Klein-Zillebrook Ridge on 6th November 1914, aged 38, being the first MP to be killed in the conflict. He has no known grave and is commemorated on the Menin Gate in Ypres. This window, 3-light window in St. Mark's Church of Ireland at Dundela, was designed by Ward and Partners of Belfast. The window was dedicated on Sunday the 25th of May 1919 by Reverend Professor William Halliday Thompson, rector of St. Stephen's Church at Ealing. The first light features David with his sling and represents valour. The central light features Abraham and Isaac and represents sacrifice. And the third light features Jonathan and represents love. The tracery window features the insignia of the Royal Field Artillery. The inscription along the base is "To the glory of God and in loving memory of Major Lloyd Thompson MC, RFA, who was killed in action at the Battle of Cambrai, 1st December 1917. This window was erected by his father and mother, Mr. and Mrs. James A. Thompson of Penryn, Strandtown." At one side of the dedication panel is a representation of the military cross, which was awarded to Robert Thompson, and in the other there's a family crest, presumably the Thompson family. There's an amusing aspect to this window in that if you read the two lines under the central panel, what you get is "Memory of Major Lloyd Thompson, MC, RFA, who was killed by his father and mother, Mr. and Mrs. James A. Thompson," which I think used to scare children in the congregation. Robert Lloyd Thompson was born on 31st May 1888 at Sydenham to James Armstrong Thompson, who was a linen manufacturer, and Sarah Thompson. He was educated at Campbell College and Queen's University in Belfast. He received a commission with the Royal Artillery from the OTC at Queen's in April 1913. He was deployed to France on 10th September 1914 and was awarded the Military Cross in January 1916 and was mentioned in Lord French's dispatch, which was published in the London Gazette on 4th January 1917. Robert Lloyd Thompson held the rank of Major and was serving with 173rd Brigade Royal Field Artillery when he was killed in action on 1st December 1917. He was 29 years old and is buried in the Hermes Hill British Cemetery in France. Major Thompson is commemorated locally on family memorials in both Belfast City Cemetery and Dundonald Cemetery. He's also commemorated on the Campbell College War Memorial, the Queen's University War Memorial, and the Strandtown and District Unionist Club Memorial. He's also commemorated on the memorial tablets for Queen's University OTC, Knock Rugby Club, and Ormo Golf Club. And that brings tonight's presentation to a stuttering end. Thank you.